Skye at Holland, the latest launch in the thriving or dying Holland Village, depending on which side of the road you're on. One of the big questions everyone is asking is, how does Skye compare with the other developments around the area, especially One Holland Village, and also how does Skye compare with the other launches in the rest of Singapore? In order to do that, we've consolidated all the data of all the condos within 1 km of Holland Village MRT. And we're going to utilize our data-driven, back-tested exit strategy framework to analyze them. I'm going to share with you some of the concerns I have with regards to Skye at Holland. Let's get right down into it. So we're going to start off first by analyzing the supply around Skye at Holland. And in order to do so, what I have done was to pull out all the data of all the condominiums within 1 km of Holland Village MRT. Okay, I've chose to pick 1 km from Holland Village MRT instead of 1 km from Skye at Holland is because that's how buyers will search in the future, right? They search based on landmarks such as 1 km from a particular school or 1 km from the MRT. They will not find the condominium immediately and start finding from the condominium itself unless they are absolutely zoomed in on the particular condo. Okay, so now let's take a look. Okay, so what I've done was to list them in terms of sizing from largest to smallest. Okay, over here we have Leiden. I've also already input Skye at Holland in for us, right? And it's going to be the second largest development by number of units within 1 km of Holland Village MRT. Okay, we also have Leiden Green, Leiden Residences, Hill on Holland, One Holland Village, Parvis, Astrid Meadows, Vis at Holland, Holland Peak, Waterfall Gardens, and the Merah Saga. Okay, out of all of this, okay, Skye at Holland, One Holland Village, Leiden, and also the Merah Saga is 99 years. The rest of them are freehold. So you might also be wondering, what are some of these condos that were highlighted in this color, right? So while I was doing my initial analysis, the data, as you can see over here, right, for profitability is not too bad. They have pretty good exit scores, all things considered. However, my main concern is that these are the condos, those that are highlighted here, right, are within 1 km of Nanyang Premier. And I didn't know, or I had to answer to myself whether or not the performance of the area is contributed by its proximity to Nanyang. And is there a significant difference in terms of the profitability the minute you move out of 1 km to Nanyang, right? That's the reason why we have also indicated which condos were within 1 km and which condos were outside of 1 km. So you could kind of like take a look at it for yourself, okay? We've also put those that are out of 1 km from Nanyang into a separate sheet itself. So if you'd like to take a look at this, feel free to drop us a text. Happy to share it with you, okay? And let's get started, right, to see what are some of the data points that we are looking at. We have over here for the one bedders, we consolidated all the supply of one bedders. What we also look at the average quantum transacted, right, in that particular condo in the last 12 months. Yeah, and analyzing all of the averages between the condos, and we found the average, median, and highest. Okay, we've also done the same for PSF. This states the number of transactions within the condo, the average profitability, and the percentage analyzed returns of them. And this is also to give you an indication of what the average sizes transacted over there. Okay, because Skye doesn't have one bedders, we're going to jump to the two bedders. So you can see over here the number of two bedders at Skye at Holland. Some people may see it immediately and wow, quite a lot. The fact is that it takes up almost, actually more than 50% of the units over at Skye at Holland, and that's also already considering that there's no one bedder. So the number of two bedders is a little bit on the high side, right? But how does the two bedders perform over here? So with Leiden, we have 8 transactions, right? Average profitability not too bad, 383,000, but those units are about 900 odd square feet. They average into about 3% annualized, which is okay if you ask me, okay? Leiden Green, freehold within 1 km of Nanyang Premier, 2 bedders averaging only 2.7. This is slightly disappointing, okay? We have also Leiden Residences. By Leiden Residences, the 2 bedders are huge, 1,000 square feet. Again, the average profitability isn't great. So if you look over here, the ones that are really pulling up the average is actually Vis at Holland and also the Merah Saga. My concern over here is Merah Saga 7.7% is contributed solely based on one transaction only, right? One guy made $500,000 buying a 958 square feet old, this is about 20 odd years old, 99 years condo, okay, in this area. So I think actually this Mera Saga, well, I've not heard about it before starting to analyze this, actually performed very well. This is, I mean, take a look at it, right? But for all intents and purposes, right, it shouldn't do well. It's a 99 in a freehold area. Not to mention, in the freehold area, there has freehold developments within 1 km of Nanyang Primary, and this guy is out of 1 km of Nanyang Primary, 99. This shouldn't do well, okay? But here we have one guy making 7.7% annualized, $500,000, right? So very, very interesting case study, right? The Mera Saga. Okay, moving on. Three bidders. Yeah, three bidders. We have a lot more transactions. The leading the way because it's largest anyway. Okay, average profitability about $700,000, 3.2% annualized. Right, the average sizes over there is about 1,400 square feet. So this is one of the things that I'm paying attention to in this analysis. The average sizes of the three bidders within 1 km of Holland Village MRT. Their average size is very, very big. Okay, so this is one of the first few sizes that we can come in and start to see those over at 900 odd square feet, which I feel, I mean, given the fact that definitely the PSF will be high, potentially giving us a pretty decent entry point, right? We're going to talk about this later on in our exit strategy framework, okay? Linden Green, right? Once we start to look at their three bidders, turn the corner very much, okay? They've now come up to about 4.9% annualized returns on $500,000 profit, right? Decent enough, 3 transactions to make this not an outlier. So I think actually Linden Green's 3 bidder outperformed the 2 bidder by more than, almost about double, okay? Almost about double, right? Linden Residences, 3 bidders, about 3% analyzed. We see over here Hugh on Holland, which is another interesting case study. So Hugh on Holland, Linden and Linden Green launched about the same time. Yeah, and at that point in time, right, a lot of the demand actually flow over to Linden Green because it's within 1 km of Nanyang Primary. But nowadays, after TOP and in the resale market, we've actually seen, okay, that Hugh on Holland perform better than that of Linden Green. Okay, and if you really were to ask me, I boil that down to entry price, okay, because Hugh on Holland's entry price at that point in time for most of the transactions over here, I perhaps can put them up onto the screen. Their entry price PSF is significantly lesser than that of Linden Green. Yeah, so if you, how you can kind of utilize this little case study to help you is at the end of the day, entry price is very, very important. Not sure how many of you know Hugh on Holland. Hugh on Holland, actually quite a number of those units are also facing the flyover, right? Also, quite a number of units also have West Sun. And a lot of the units, the balcony door is a swing door, so there's a fixed panel with a swing door, which was super odd, and actually there were quite a lot of people that kind of couldn't get over that particular feature of them. So again, right, a lot of interesting case studies in this little research that we have done. Mera Saga 99 out of 1 km, 99 out of 1 km does well. Hugh on Holland versus Linden Green, end up Hugh on Holland do better despite it being out of 1 km of Nanyang Primary School. Okay, we've seen actually the 3 bidders consistently do quite well. Yeah, Hugh on Holland, another one example. One Holland Village also had a 3 bidder already transacted in the sub-sale market. Okay, 1,238 square feet one, making about $500,000. That's 5.5% annualized, which is really, really good. Yep. Parvis 3.6. We have Astrid Meadows, okay, which is really old. Yeah. Not near to MRT, is very, very far in near Coronation, that side. Average profit is about 1.237 million, 4.1% annualized, which is great. Yeah, their average 3 bidder quantum transacted over there is 4.5 million, similar to Parvis, right? So this is one data point again that you can use to show that the purchasing power in that area is very, very good. Okay. Visit Holland, on one transaction, percentage analyzed, not great, at 1.5%. This is also one transaction, right? So may potentially be an outlier. Waterfall Gardens, 2 transactions at 1.5%. Okay, so average into 3.9% in and around the area, it's really not bad. Okay, but this is the one that interests me, right? Because we are able to then come in at almost 900 plus to 1,000 square feet. right, giving us a huge PSF buffer, right? We'll talk about that again later on. Now, onto the 4-bedders, supply drops off significantly down to less than 1,000 4-bedders in the area. And over here, right, I won't go through them one by one anymore. But what you can see over here is the average quantums of the 4-bedders being transacted within 1 km of Holland Village MRT. It's very, very high. And potentially, I think we can come into some of the 4-bedders closer to the 3 mil price point, maybe 3.5 mil. I think that's a great entry price, okay? Gives you a great gap score. Over here, you see the best performing 4-bedders again is Leiden Green. Now you start to notice in Leiden Green, the larger you go, the more you make. Similarly for Leiden Residences, the larger you go, the more you make, okay? The rest of them, not so many transactions. I won't talk about them too much. Let's take a look at the Leiden. 2.9% on 10 transactions. I believe the 3-bedders do better, about 3.2, right, on 20 transactions, right? So on the Leiden's case study, it flips around, right? The Leiden 3-bedder more profitable than the 4-bedder. In Leiden Green, okay, and Leiden Residences, the larger the unit, the better it does. Right, so that's a little bit of a interesting dynamics over there. Okay, 5-bedders, again, the supply drops down significantly with Leiden Residences offering the higher supply, right? But you don't really have to worry about that because their supply comes in at about $15 million. 3 transactions are averaging $15 million in the last 12 months. Okay, of course, when people buy 5-bedders, especially in the area, especially at that quantums, they aren't really too bothered about the returns, right? It's really whether or not they like it. Okay, so Skye at Holland also offering perhaps I believe is the second highest number of 5-bedders within a development, okay, over there, right? Leiden Green don't have 5-bedders, the Leiden also don't have 5-bedders. Here on Holland, similarly, don't have 5-bedders, and One Holland Village only 4 5-bedders. So if you're somebody that wants to buy into a kind of unique little product that doesn't have a lot of supply in the area, it's a good choice. If you look, especially if also you are looking for own stay, I believe it's a good choice because the 5-bedders over here are going to be on a high floor. Leiden Residences is not such a highly built development, okay? So that is perhaps one of the things that I will pay attention to, especially if I'm looking for my own stay. So if you've benefited from the video so far, we'll be really thankful if you could click that like and subscribe button as you help out the channel a ton. So now let's put all of that data into our exit strategy framework to analyze them. For those of you joining us for the first time, you could check out this video where we explain in detail why and how we created our exit strategy framework and how you can utilize that for your own analysis. But here's a quick summary. We wanted to find the most objective, data-driven way possible to evaluate the exit strategies of different projects on an apple-to-apple basis. So we took out 10 years of experience to create this framework and took this framework and back-tested it with the projects from 2018. And it seems to be doing pretty well. That being said, this is still a work in progress and we are happy to hear what you think we can do to make it better. So let us know down in the comments. Now let's get right into it. So I'm going to start off first by explaining what are the parameters that we have utilized for our exit strategy framework. So first of all, we have the price in terms of PSF. So this is the 2007. It's kind of what I estimate the PSFs to be, and this comes just from me, okay? I believe perhaps the indicative prices will be significantly lower than this, as we know, right? The developers, they should release the indicative prices soon, but most of the time indicative prices are the starting from prices, okay? However, right, it may potentially come out to be lower than this if they are feeling a little bit generous, considering that they have the capacity to do that due to their land price. Okay, quantum is basically the size multiplied by the price lah. Okay, so next up will be average profitability per annum. We like to use this sort of as a proxy of demand. Why so? It's because if an area has high demand, right, means the units take a faster time to sell and allowing the owners to yield higher profits. As compared to an area with slightly lesser demand, right, naturally the units will take longer to sell, and when owners take longer to sell, they tend to adjust their prices down, hence eating into their profits. Okay, we also utilize this per annum basis to allow us to analyze the different projects based on some of the holding periods, because some projects are a lot older and they have a much longer holding periods as well, right? So all in all, utilize this average profitability per annum as the best way for us to also compare different unit types across different projects, all in. Okay, current units for sale over here, right? What is we take this from Property Guru with the filters already plugged in. So as you can see from here, the interesting thing about the 2-bed 1-bath is that there's nothing within 1 km of for sale right now, within 1 km of Holland Village MRT, but due to the Property Guru functions not being the most accurate, because how they do it for 1 km it's not by distance but by timing, right? Somehow or rather it excludes Leiden, which is why I've put in Leidens available to 2-bed 1-bath or 1+ studies for sale into this number, so you can't exactly see it if you just click on the link in Property Guru. So I had to do 2 steps also to add in the supply over there. Okay, total supply of units for sale come from over here. We sum up all the 2-bedders that have been built in and around the area. Okay, and we use these 2 figures to give us the supply ratio, and hence giving us also the exit score, which is essentially a ratio tell us the demand and supply of a particular area, right? The lower the score, the better, right? We also have consolidated the average surrounding quantums, median surrounding quantums, and highest achieved quantums in that area, doing so also for the PSF, right? Summing these 2 up gives us the gap score. What does that gap score tell you? Is how far away are you? What's the gap available to you between the surrounding units in terms of both price and PSF. Similarly, the lower the better. The more negative, the better. Now running through from left to right, okay, so in terms of the 2-bed 1-bath, there's not that much supply. If you can see, only available over at the Leiden, we have a pretty decent exit score over there. 2-bed 2-bath, right, the supply comes up, right, we look at it's the same for 2-bed 2-bath and 2+ study, because it's too much effort to go in and really see the difference, right? But in terms of the exit, this is how people search for it as well. So these are kind of data that you will kind of expect, right? So in terms of the exit score will be the same, right? What differs really would then be the gap score. Okay, because naturally the 2-bed 2-bath will be cheaper than the 2+ study, hence the 2-bed 2-bath will have a better gap score as compared to the 2+ study. Okay, so on the 2-bedders, one thing to note really is to come in and see over here, in and around the area, 372 2-bedders over at Skye at Holland, forming about 50%. Another thing you will notice is also at One Holland Village, also a huge chunk of the percentage goes over to the 2-bedders as well, right? Close to also 50% of the supply. So that's perhaps something that you might want to pay attention to. That being said, it still averages into about 3.5% average profitability per annum. Perhaps the one thing that kind of concerns me is really that there's still no resale transactions yet at One Holland Village to really tell us the demand side factors for 2-bed 2-baths in and around that area. Okay, you could check out the Leiden for 99 years near to the MRT, about 2.8% average, which is, to be fair, not great. Yeah, so something to pay attention to. Now moving on to the 3 compact, right? 3 compact, more 3-bedders, right? As a matter of fact, right? 3-bedders easier for us to split. So 3 compact really is the 3-bed 2-baths, okay? And 3 premium is the 3-bed 3-bath, right? Surprisingly, the compacts have lesser supply than the. Surprisingly, in a way that this is if you are thinking about the newer projects, because newer projects have more compact bedders, right? But we are in an area with a lot of old supply, right? And in the olden times, don't really build 3 compacts, right? Which is why in a way, I'm not that surprised to see there's not that much 3 compacts. And you can see over here, 8 of them come from the. In terms of overall supply being built, the 3-bedders is not that much more than the 2-bedders, surprisingly, right? But in terms of the ratio, how many is currently for sale, the 3-bedders have a lot lesser than 2-bedders. What does that tell you? People over there, a lot of it is more for own stay as for investment, okay? Hence, giving it a better gap score, right? Similar supply, higher profitability, less units for sale, better gap score, right? Another thing that it beats out the 2-bedders is exit score is better. Similarly, the gap score is better as well. What does this tell you? If you can afford, get the 3-bedders instead of the 2-bedders. bedders, right? The 3-bedders have fantastic gap scores because if we can get in a 3 compact about 2.4 plus mil, the average in the area is 3.5, so almost a $1 million gap. Okay, the 3 premium at 2.9 is still below the 3.5 million average, right? One of the things you might want to consider is then how does this, it may sound very familiar to you, this dynamics of, entering into an area with very high median and average surrounding numbers, because this is quite similar to River Valley, which we will dive into it later, right? Comparing the scores between at Holland's numbers, their scores versus the River Valley scores, right? Because to me, I feel the dynamics are quite similar, and also the fact that in the future, the demand might kind of overlap one another. So I think it's also a very important consideration for us to take note of. Okay, now 4-bedders. Okay, 4-bedders, much less units built, but a lot for sale. But then again, I also need to help you caveat, right? There's a huge chunk of it that is coming from Linden. Okay, so actually if you strip out Linden, the numbers is significantly lower, right? Then again, right, with these numbers, how you can reconcile it, the profitability is still quite good lah, right? So as long as you can kind of hold out for a little bit longer, I think that is fine. Linden notoriously hard to sell lah, right? But if you have someone that's looking to stay with a bit more amenities closer to Holland Village, I think there's a potential more decent exit. What also interests me is the gap between the average surrounding areas, right? So if you can enter at about 3.3, the average surrounding transacted 4-bedders are close to 5 mil, giving you almost $1.7 million gap, right? Which is why the 4-bedders also have a very, very good gap score. Okay, 5-bedders, because there's not that much transactions. If you look over here, just 3 transactions over at Linden Residences in the entire area. So it's not the best indication for us, okay? But then again, if you're looking at 5-bedders, you're more or less looking for own stay, especially if you're looking to spend about 4.7 to 5 mil more for own stay. These numbers may not impact you so much. Perhaps the best thing that can help you is maybe this average surrounding 5-bedders is already at 15 mil, right? You enter at almost 1/3 the price. Not the best comparisons, but you know what? That's the best that we can do for now. Next up, let's take a look at how Skye's scores measure up against the other launches right now. So what I've done is to put in Skye score over here, comparing with Robertson Opus, River Green, Promenade Peak, Upper House, Penrith, Alta, Tampines West. We are in the process of doing Grand Zion and Faber Walk, right? If you, again, right, like to take a look at this, feel free to drop us a text. So as you can see over here, Skye actually has the best 2-bed, 2-bath exit score amongst second best, right? Tampines West has the best so far, right? The best exit score amongst the rest, right? It has, if you take a look at its profitability, right, it's lower than Alta and Penrith, but the supply is lesser than that for both Alta and Penrith, right? Hence giving it a better score. If we take a look at the gap score, Upper House has a better gap score, but other than that, Skye's gap score, it's the second best. So all in all, in terms of the scoring as compared to the other launches, Skye's 2-bedders actually measure up pretty well. Next up, let's take a look at the 3-bedders, okay? So comparing again through the different developments, I've put in Skye's 3 Compact as well as Skye's 3 Premium. You can see the exit score does better than the units over in River Valley, primarily due to the supply, as you can see over here, right? Profitability, it's better, right? But not significantly better, but we have a much better exit score. Really, it's due to the supply in that area. And also bearing in mind the way we calculate this, right? We do expect units for sale to come up aggressively once the units over at River Valley all TOP. Yeah, hence giving it an even worse supply score kind of 4-5 years down the road. If you're somebody that is a little bit more concerned with supply, perhaps a slightly shorter holding period, you're looking for perhaps a slightly quicker flip, right? You'll be looking at, if you're comparing Skye versus River Valley, I would lean a little bit more towards Skye. Okay. Also, then we kind of have summarized that into the exit score. Now, the more interesting comparison, right, over here, really would be Penrith against Skye, also because they are launching at very close timeframes to one another. So on this note, right, Penrith scores will be better, right, in terms of compact. Penrith scores better, right? And in terms of premium, similarly, Penrith scores better as well in terms of the exit score, primarily because of a much stronger capital appreciation, profitability, okay? However, Skye comes in with a better gap score, meaning the area around Skye has already tested and proven that people are willing to pay $3.5 million for 3 bidders versus Queenstown, right, whereby the highest anyone has paid for a 3-bidder really is at 2.9 million, and potentially you're entering in at, let's say, 2.1 to 2.5 million. The gap, it's okay, but it's not as good as Skye. Okay, so now people are asking me, so now which is better? So how do I kind of make sense of these two scores? It then really comes back down to how you kind of analyze the market, or what is the kind of comfort level you are. Are you the kind that prefer to buy into a particular area knowing that those quantums have been hit before, those PSF have been hit before? Or do you prefer to buy into an area, right, that has lesser supply, that you know for sure that the demand is very, very high? So to me, I focus more on average profitability per annum, right? Because this is the clearest indication of demand. With demand scores like that, right, it tells me that coming very, very close to the quantums over here, or even surpassing the quantums over here, it's okay, okay? And the benefit over here is also what? It's also the fact that Skye is honestly not that far away from Queenstown. Okay, so you might potentially also experience some spillover of demand, because at the end of the day, over at Skye, people are not buying there for the schools anyway, right? They are probably buying there for the lifestyle and also perhaps maybe for the district. Yeah, but if the prices over there are so expensive or there's not much supply, they may start moving outwards and explore further areas. And for that, then areas like Penrith would then benefit a lot more. Okay, so we even compare that to Clementi over at Alta. So notice the score, maybe the compact for Skye will beat out the Altas 3 compact, right? But in terms of the premium, the scoring then comes very, very close to one another. Then again, for the gap score, Skye will beat out for that, right? Because primarily once you go nearer to the CCR, you will have a much better gap score. Okay, follow us as we jump into Tampines West very, very soon. Okay, likely to come out sometime early next year. And for OCR development, it has very, very good scores. So I'm actually pretty excited about that as well. Ending off the analysis with the 4 bidders. So over here, we have Skye's 4-bedroom, the slightly smaller one. Notice our score for the 4 bedrooms as compared to the rest isn't that great, right? Penrith will win for sure because of the sheer lack of supply over there with very, very good profitability. Now, Skye's score is kind of impacted, in my opinion, primarily due to the supply. The profitability is still okay, but the supply is very, very high, and D'Leedon is to blame. There's a lot of units for sale over at D'Leedon. Of course, then naturally that may affect some people's analysis, because D'Leedon, while it's slightly older, not too far from MRT, it's actually closer to Farrer Park MRT, but it has 1 km to Nanyang over there, right? So some people may be asking, then why not I go and buy that one? It's perfectly okay, right? The issue really with D'Leedon is the supply over there. There's a lot of people that has finally started to make some money after purchasing it in 2011, 2012 at the peak, right? Finally, it's starting to turn the corner, seeing a little bit of profit. People are cashing out. Okay, so primarily the score, not that great due to the supply over at D'Leedon. But profitability is still decent, while not as good as Queenstown or Clementi. Still better than River Valley. Okay, in terms of gap score, very, very good gap score. As a matter of fact, I think it has the best gap score amongst all the developments, even beating out River Valley, because the 4 bidders in and around the Holland Village area averaged to almost $5 million, highest at 7.5, right? Median at $5.2 million. Okay, so if you can get something at a 1238 square feet, you do really, really well. So now that we're done with the quantitative part of the analysis, let's take a look at what are some of the qualitative considerations that you might want to think about when comparing the projects, okay? So for example, the size of the development, whether or not a project has transformation or not, right? But I usually don't pay too much attention to this, because somehow or rather it seems like there's transformation all over Singapore. If not, then a lot of the times the transformation take a very long time to come to fruition. Yeah. This one may be a little bit more of the consideration, such as the new plots. So if you've checked out our Penrith video earlier, I must say Penrith might have more plots coming out in the future that helps to push prices up, perhaps a little more than Skye on Holland. Okay. The age of the developments, especially if you're considering a new versus resale. Okay. Rental use if you are a owner, if you are looking to buy it for investment. Okay. If you're buying it for own stay, obvious things like schools, MRTs, amenities. Okay. And if you're buying it for investment, actually not even just for investment, if you're buying it also for own stay, you might want to also consider how does your portfolio stack up with regards to each purchase, right? Especially when you're talking about holding period. So maybe I can explain it in this way. If you like to buy into a particular area, but right, the score is not great. Okay, but let's say the scoring is not great, but you need and you want to buy into the area, maybe perhaps for schools, right? Then naturally you want to factor for a slightly longer holding period. Or for example, you go for the balloting, not great. You have to buy a slightly higher floor, giving you a not so good gap score. Okay, naturally, then you have to hold for a longer holding period. Now, that in itself shouldn't be a deal breaker for a lot of people. But okay, what you can think about is then, okay, if I have one option that needs a longer holding period, how does that stack up with my opportunity cost if I buy something that has a perhaps shorter holding period, may need to spend a little bit more money, right? So these are all kind of things that you kind of want to think about, right? Such as similarly portfolio sizing. Okay, if you're selling one, should you upsize your portfolio into one bigger one, or should you be splitting one into maybe something that's not as big and a smaller one for investment? Which one has a better returns for your portfolio further down the road? Which one has less opportunity cost? Okay, right? So there, see that, right? Opportunity cost. Next up really is which one has the best exit timing. So these are what you are looking for. Particular triggers such as new plots, right? Particular triggers such as huge batch of MOP in and around the area. Okay. Then once you zoom into a particular project, you want to then compare, right, the competitors, right? And especially for Penrith, what you want to look at is how does the layouts compare to One Holland Village, because they are so similar, right, beside one another. Age-wise is not too different from one another, right? I'm not going to go into layout comparisons for the sake of trying to keep this video relatively short. And also at the end of the day, the layout comparisons is readily available with a lot of other videos on YouTube right now. I just want to focus down onto the data, okay? But that's something that you should look at, right? Before you head down for the purchase. We do assist our clients with that, okay? Layout analysis, stack selection, and especially for Skye on Holland, where some units will have a slight west sun, right? Is that going to be better due to the good view, or should you pick something that don't have west sun but with not so good view? Okay, then you also want to talk about how much the developers are pricing the different stacks against one another as well. So if all of this sounds very daunting to you, don't worry, simply reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to help you out. So the developers have released quite a fair bit of information about the project, such as the site plan and the floor plan. So I'm going to give my quick thoughts on them. But before we jump onto that, can I just say I love the logo and the color combination that they have selected for Skye at Holland. Orange is my favorite color, and I think this mesh of blue and orange is perhaps one of the nicest logos. Simple, understated, yet striking. Now, let me share my quick thoughts on the site plan as well as the layout. Okay, so this is the site kind of shape in the shape of a handgun, small pistol, small handgun. Not the biggest site you're going to find, to be honest, okay? So I feel the developers and architects have already done their best to put in what they have to put in for this site. Unfortunately, couldn't find a space for a tennis court. Is it a deal breaker? I don't think so. Increasingly, less and less condos have tennis courts, okay? And primarily, they are split up into two levels, right? Over here, you can see level 1 and level 3. They put in all the barbecue pits, barbecue pits, kids pool. Essentially the noisy stuff on level 1, which is good, right? Because this is a busy road anyways, right? This is a busy road anyways. So dump all the noisy facilities on the ground floor. Good move, okay? I feel the entrance drop-off point could have been a little bit more grand. But you know what, just picking for, I think not much of an issue lah. But what I like, okay, perhaps my favorite feature, it's the pool over here. I thought it was a very smart move, their part to face the landed houses and Bukit Timah Nature Reserve lah. So what you're gonna get when you're standing on the pool deck over here is pretty much a unobstructed view, so it doesn't feel claustrophobic. There's no buildings looking down upon you, and I particularly like that kind of pool. So it kind of remind me of the pool over at Clairvon. Maybe I can put the photo or video up onto the screen. Okay, so I feel this is a pretty nice touch. So views wise, this is what you're gonna get if you overlook the North Buona Vista Road. If you look south and go slightly higher floor, the view is actually also pretty nice. I thought the developers did a good job. They chose, right, they did a good selection, so to speak, right, to elevate all the units slightly further up, right, starting only on the third floor. That allows it to clear, right, a lot of the hustle and bustle down in Holland Village, especially Holland Village Way. Like a lot of traffic comes here, turns down this way to go into One Holland Village, and there's likely going to be a lot of pedestrian traffic over there. Also, elevating this helps to clear over here, right, the One Holland Village. Okay, so pretty nice touch. Perhaps the only complaint I have, it's the close block to block distance over here. So between these two blocks is only 29 meters. It's like just slightly more than what you're gonna get at Treasure at Tampines. Okay, so then they go and put a pool in the middle. So if you're gonna pick some of these stacks, I suggest you just pick lower floor, right? At least you overlook the pool, because if you go slightly further up, you're gonna just be looking block to block over here. Okay, so another thing I felt they could have done, potentially done, but I think they are already kind of maxed out on their GFA, was to maybe put a little Skye terrace over here lah, right? Just to, you know, give a little bit more space, a little bit more communal space, okay? Because for 666, I think this is sufficient. Maybe could have given more lah, right? Especially because the views all around are so nice, right? You know, they could have. Okay. Another downside, right, is that the units facing the good views over at North Buona Vista Road all will have some slight west sun. I mean, because of how the site is shaped, no choice, they have to orientate it this way, right? So you are then put to the decision, do you want the nice view? If you want, then you kind of got to deal with the west sun. If not, you look southwards, morning sun, clear One Holland Village, the view also not so bad. So here's where it gets interesting, okay? I feel because of the nice view, the nice unblocked view, the developers might price this row with a bit of a premium. Okay, I think this row, the inward facing one, might be slightly cheaper. I don't know, right? Unless they try to sell you the pool, right? But if they price the south ones to be cheaper than the north ones, I think that is quite interesting. I think you can consider the south one instead of the north one because of no west sun and the view is not that bad either. Okay, all right. Now let's take a look at the floor plans. So quick one. I mean, 2 bed, 1 bath, nothing much to talk about, open concept kitchen and whatnot. Okay, 2-bedroom premium. Okay, very standard nowadays, right? At least a tuck away kitchen, a nice nook over for the dining, dumbbell layouts. Okay, nothing much to shout about, pretty standard. The 2+ study is one that I have a bit of a question. Okay, so the kitchen, right, nicely tucked away. We have this nice nook over here for the dining. So this is all good. Jack and Jill toilet for the common bedroom. The master bedroom is okay. My only point is, what is this study doing over here? You know, typically people either have their study over here, right? When you come in this extra space over here, then connected to the master bedroom, at least you can kind of use it as a separate space, right? But you don't have your study over here. You want to close off and then access it through here. Also a bit funny, right? Because your master bedroom then got no windows, or you know, there's no privacy over here. You can't like house your maid over here or whatnot, right? You then are really left with just utilizing it as a pure study. Right. Of course, if you want to really just use this I think this glass here might be able to remove lah. Then you move your master bedroom out, have a larger wardrobe. I think that's then okay. Yeah, but not the best. 2 plus study layout, we're gonna see, okay? The 3 compact is good, right? Because natural ventilations all around. All the toilets have natural ventilation, and the kitchen also has natural ventilation, not too big of a entrance walkway over here, right? So pretty good lah. If you ask me, then we have 2. Then we have like a sort of junior master over here that is ensuite to the toilet, right? So this is perhaps my favorite layout out of the lot. Yeah, very efficient. The 3-bedroom premium, then pretty standard already, right? Nowadays it's more fashionable to just have a pure dry kitchen. They don't really do the island for you anymore, which is good. I like that. Yeah. So then it gives you a very wide living dining area. Wet kitchen, yard, household shelter, very standard. Naturally ventilated, again, pretty standard. The 4-bedroom with private lift, okay? You come out private lift over here, extremely squarish living dining area. So when it comes to private lift, what do I look at, okay? I look at how much wasted space there is in the wet kitchen. You have to pay attention for all the private lift ones. Usually the kitchen is very odd, right? Because they kind of have to wrap around the kitchen, around the private lift, yeah? And also then create the back entrance in case your private lift spoil. So a lot of the times the wet kitchens the wet kitchens, especially for private lift units, very bad layouts. But this one, very regular. I think it's perhaps as optimized as can be. Yeah, the 4-bedroom premium with private lift, again, super efficient. I love this. Is perhaps my favorite kind of kitchen layout, right? So we have landscape over here. So for this one is portrait, right? But if you want to, you can afford a little bit more, pay a little bit more, you can get the landscape layout much wider. And the very nice kitchen with an island over here. So what does this do for you is that if you don't use the kitchen, you can open up, and visual perception of the space is much bigger than, for example, this one that has the wet kitchen tucked away. You essentially absorb up the square footage within the kitchen into your overall feel of the space, right? Very good. And very efficient yard space. There's no odd yard walkway and whatnot. This is perhaps as efficient as you can get, right? So very good layouts and whatnot. Perhaps the only kind of wasted space which is unavoidable is this slightly longer walkway over here for the junior master, but you're gonna get that everywhere because there's only 1 bedroom that's tucked over here, unless that bedroom comes over here. Okay. Yeah, but some people prefer it this way, as all the bedrooms are then tucked away from the communal area. 5-bedroom private lift, again, I like it how they have very efficient kitchen and the backyard area. Yeah, not a lot of wasted space over here. The only thing that kind of lacking, okay here got the window, so you can still do your laundry over here Pretty much the same, right? You are just adding in extra bedrooms over here. So these both bedrooms have ensuite toilet, right? Master ensuite toilet. This junior master ensuite toilet. Okay, so it's only 1 bedroom that don't have ensuite. If not, there's basically 4 ensuite bedrooms. So I think this one, considering the fact that they didn't build that many, will sell very well, especially in areas like that. If you enjoyed the video so far, you have benefited just a little bit, we'll be really thankful if you could hit that like and subscribe button, as you'll help out the channel a ton. And lastly, the 3 things we like and don't quite like about Skye at Holland. On to the first thing we like about Skye at Holland is this excellent gap score. So Skye at Holland essentially have one of the best gap scores among all the condos or launches to date, right? What the gap score does is to measure our current entry price, okay, as a function of the surrounding entry prices and surrounding PSFs. So as you can see over here, right, in the 2 bedders, the average surrounding quantums is at $2.1 million, which is why if you can enter, if you 2-bed 1 bath at 1.5 is great. Even the 2-bed 2 baths at 1.8, 1.9 is still a pretty decent gap. But the gap really starts to widen the minute you go into the 3 bedders, because the average 3 bedders in that area is about 3.6 to 3.5 million. So any entry price, in my opinion, under 3 million offers you a pretty good gap. All right. The 4 bedders as well, because the 4 bedder average in that area is 5.25 to 5.2 million, an entry price of about 3 to 3.4 million dollars. It's pretty good, okay? In terms of the 5 bedders at 4.7 million, while it may seem high, there's very little supply of 5 bedders in the area. We've already seen 5 bedders being done at 15M over at Leiden Green. And the reason why you can achieve this is because it's the first GFA harmonized plot in that area. And that gives it an edge over its nearest competitor, One Holland Village. And on the topic of One Holland Village, that brings me to the second point on what I like about Skye at Holland is its excellent catchment. Now, what do I mean by that? The fact that we are located in the Bukit Timah, Farrer Road, even down to the Mount Sinai enclave, there's honestly not a lot of amenities in this very big landed enclave. So everybody around there, even the people that study in and around the Bukit Timah area, they all kind of flock towards Holland Village. So while the older part of Holland Village seems to be dying, One Holland Village has done a very, very good job in kind of curating that mall and making that mall sort of a destination for everybody living in that area. So now, how does this benefit Skye at Holland in the future? So everybody is going to come down to One Holland Village. They're going to look at the two developments over there. We have One Holland Village and we have Skye at Holland. And as I mentioned in my previous point, Skye at Holland has an edge over One Holland Village because it's GFA harmonized, it's a lot more efficient in terms of their layouts, and potentially cheaper. So the project's location functions essentially as a billboard for the project. So anybody living in that area, if they're looking to buy a condo, this might be one of the first stops that they come to, ensuring a good and consistent demand moving forward. And this is also backed up by the great exit score that we mentioned about earlier on in the video. Now to my third and final point on what I like about Skye at Holland, it's its entry price. Now, before you start flaming me to say crazy, Alvin, 2007, 2008 PSF, maybe even 3000 PSF, how can you say it's a good entry price? Hold your horses, let me give you some examples. First of all, let's take a look at One Holland Village. Okay, the average entry price across all the units, there's about 2,800 PSF. Okay, you appleize it for GFA harmonization and lease, they're easily going to come up to about 3,000 plus PSF. So if you have any entry price over at Skye at Holland that's slightly lesser than that, especially if you're looking at even lower than 2.7, maybe for low floors, considering we're already elevated, I think that's great, right? Our risk is very, very low as well because we enjoy the similar convenience as One Holland Village. We're essentially a integrated development without having to pay the integrated development or mixed-use development premium. Okay, now if you look at some of the other developments that's a bit older, Jetscape, Park Esta, Sterling Residences, even Woodley Residences, they are all already hovering at about 2,500 PSF. Give it another couple of years, knowing that how strongly those developments perform, right? They're gonna hit 2.6, 2.7 in just a matter of time. Now, if we again appleize those for GFA harmonization and also for lease, they should also come into 2.8, 2.9 PSF, even 3,000, even in excess of 3,000 PSF, which is why I'm saying that 2,700, 2,800 PSF entry, I think is really, really fair. I have not even talked about the fact that this whole area has a lot of old money inside. So it's very, very easy for the parents to help the kids buy a condo over there, or even the parents themselves buy a condo over there, sort of either as a holiday home or a retirement home, right sizing down from all their huge and extremely expensive landed properties around the area. Now onto the three things we don't quite like about Skye at Holland. It's its competition for demand. So now for all the demand moving into this particular area, let's say the Holland Village area, if they move a little bit towards the Farrer side, in my opinion, some people may then decide to just buy within 1 km of Nanyang Primary just for a safety factor. They don't even need the school per se, right? But they may feel that, maybe I buy within 1 km of the good school just to be safe. And which is why we've seen the demand of Eden Green that time to be significantly higher than that of the demand at Hill on Holland. Whether or not that translates into profits further down the road, that's another topic, right? I've shared that earlier on in this video, right? But that is just something that I've visualized and actually something that we've kind of experienced ourselves in that area. Then now you move a little bit more towards the Mount Sinai side, people may then choose to buy within 1 km of Henry Park just to be safe, even though they may not need the school. So then that leaves us with a very unique profile, which is the people that really don't care so much about the school, that perhaps are prioritizing a little bit more in terms of the convenience, right? So those will then be the people that may want to only look at Skye at Holland or within the Holland Village area, right? The data have shown that there are people like that, okay? But I just want to articulate this so that you are kind of aware of the kind of demand and what goes through the minds of the demand of your buyers further down the road. So then, for people that are prioritizing convenience, amenities, lifestyle per se, then they can also start to consider where's the other popular area, River Valley, right? Which we have many options coming up further down the road. So in my opinion, is there a overlap of demand that may potentially be? Of course, there will still be the people that say, I don't want River Valley, very crowded. Well, One Holland Village is also crowded, maybe not as crowded as River Valley, and they land you back on Holland Village. Now, onto the second thing I don't quite like about Skye at Holland is the fact that the units in that area take time to sell. And this is again an extension of the first point, right? Because the demand over there is pretty scattered and they have quite a lot of options. And it's not helped by the fact that the buyers in those areas are well-to-do, a little bit more affluent. So they kind of have a lot of choices to choose from. And if they're paying that kind of money, they kind of want to pick the best. All right. And so how do we kind of overcome the first and the second point that I'm talking about is 2 points. First is to be patient when you are selling, right? You already go in eyes wide open knowing that, okay, when we come to selling this area, it takes time. The buyers over there are picky, it takes time to sell. So you don't kanchong. You don't be impatient and start cutting your price to let it go. Because what the data have shown is that the profitability is still there. The demand is still there. It just takes time, right? Because there's so many options for them to choose from. As long as you're priced right, you will move your unit further down the road, right? So I would avoid trying to sell your unit right at TOP, right? Maybe rent it out for 6 months, 1 year, time it properly where the supply is a little bit lower, and then that's where you can exit at a better price. And now point number 2, again, now this brings us back to the point on entry price. If you enter at a good enough entry price, you can look at it as I'm not competing with my neighbors. I'm actually competing with what? I'm competing with the supply even in Queenstown, even in Clementi, because if my entry price is comparable to them, I can price also similarly to them, and I may look then as a better alternative as compared to the high prices in and around the RCR area. So now to our third and final point on what we don't quite like about Skye at Holland is its launch timing. So if you've been following our videos, this has been something that we've been saying for the previous few launches, including Penrith, River Valley, etc. Right? It's because there's definitely FOMO in the market right now, and this FOMO is caused by number 1, a lack of supply in the resale market. How much? How so? Okay, I'm going to put that table up onto the screen. As you can see over here, I've tracked the available supply in some of the previous launches from the 2018 batch, and you can see effective supply for 3-bedders is actually less than 5%. That means less than 5% of all available 3-bedders is for sale at any point in time. Now that has kind of forced people into buying new developments, okay, because they just can't find a good deal or even find anything to buy in the resale market. That has forced quite a number of people into the new launch market. So then now the new launch market is meshed with investors who that don't want to buy resale, they like to buy brand new, okay, because they can do so, right? Investors versus some even owner-occupiers now have come into the new launch market. Now, even in the new launch market, there's so much competition. We've seen take-up rates exceeding 90% consistently since the start of the year, especially for those with excellent attributes. Okay, so then this is causing a lot of FOMO in the market, and that might result in people making mistakes, especially if they fall into the trap of the FOMO. And for projects like Skye and Holland, right, that is vertically built up. Okay, if you get a mid-ish bed queue number and you're left with high floor units, you might end up paying a huge premium over what you were originally prepared to pay, which is why it's very important to plan your launch day strategy correctly. I'm going to put it up onto the screen how we plan that for our clients, to try and avoid them making mistakes in especially in pressure cooker situations like that. Is kind of designed to pressure you into taking action. Okay, so you have to have a very clear-cut plan before you go on to launch date. Number one. Number two, you also have to consider your alternatives very, very well. So while it may seem like you don't really have alternatives and options, there always is alternatives and options. And I'm talking about things that are available in the market right now, not so much about having to wait next year, because next year the launch prices are also going to be higher. Okay, so yeah, that's about it for my last point on what I don't quite like about Skye at Holland. Please do your planning properly. So we've come to the end of our review. If you'd like to take a look at any of the research that we've done or find out more about some of the collaterals that we have, please feel free to drop us a text. We are happy to send it over to you. If you have benefited from this video, don't forget to like and subscribe as you help out the channel a ton. If you like what you've seen for Skye at Holland and need more information about it, or even head down to the show flat to take a look, similarly, drop us a text. We are happy to help you out. And lastly, if you resonate with our systematic, data-driven approach to property purchases and portfolio planning, please drop us a text. We'll be happy to help you out. If not, till next time, bye-bye.